raised in a coal shed in Elmo, Saskatchewan. Well, Dad worked in the garage at Elmo's until we ended up on sleeping bags and in the back of a truck come to Ames. The farm was put together by Grandpa, and Grandma had to come along and feed them and look after the bastards.
So when they moved from Melrose, Eddie and Grandpa rode in the back of the big truck, like in the box, underneath the table, underneath the tarp.
Especially when the boxes was loaded with basically most of our possessions. My dad ran up a big bill, that's a grocery store, and just packed up and got the hell out of town. And he worked in the service station, the Ford dealership.
As a mechanic?
It was kind of funky. When we moved from Melrose, we basically had nothing in the truck. That was it. And my dad was not the most straight person. He used to go out and shoot a rabbit and bring it home, and Mom would fix it for supper, and half the people in town never even knew what they were eating. We used to pick the beetles and stuff off the goddamn trees, and that's what happened to Eddie. We used to pick him in the cans and light him on fire, and Eddie got lit on fire one day, and it was never right after.
And you threw him in the ditch.
I kind of buried him in the water. How's that? I guess I spent most of my time working on the farm. Worked on the farm in the high schools. I drove the last year of school bus and on that haze run and went to school in between. Well, I guess I went to school most of the time. I basically quit to go work in the dehydrating plant. The last year of high school was pretty well taken up there. I was in good shape then.
And then you drove truck, hauling cattle.
Yeah, a little of that.
Mm-hmm.
Ranch
Yeah.
Ranch down in the Forks. I drove that semi. It was a semi with old white 5-speed in it. I used to haul the cattle to the feedlot. Then I was working down there at the feedlot down the river, working my ass off. I went in summer working with Dale. And on land leveling, I had a TS-14. And then after that, I went and worked with Dale, period. I got fired at an international dealership in Lethbridge.
So that's when you went to Grower Supply?
Yeah.
So then we got together.
I had a ring stuck in my nose and I was rolling.
We met through my brothers. Actually, we met over a card game. We bought the house there at Vauxhall.
I tried working on the tagline. That was harder than hell, but I stuck it out for a while.
Then was the water resource? No, it wasn't water resources. What was the one down in Grassy Lake? Was that water resources?
Water resources.
Okay.
I did a lot of welding in there. And Terrence took me under his wing. I built a lot of framework. And I built a sled. A little wee sled out of steel runners. And that little son of a bitch was just slide in any place. Everybody loved that thing.
Buster especially, because when he got old, but he took it to Tabor. We used to race down the hills, and he won every time. But then after the water resources closed, we moved to Retlaw, and that's when he was working for Onstead and Dale again. And then Harold Turnbull came and talked you into moving to Enchant to drive grader for the MD of Tabor.
I was driving to Lethbridge every day to go to mechanics.
Auto mechanics.
And Harold Turnbull come out, offered me the job of road grader at Enchant, and that was one of the better jobs I had. Working on a little shack
at Retlaw.
WANDA got burnt.
Yeah, but she's got no scars. She was only about a year, I guess. She was just learning to walk.
Damn small.
Yeah, went up here to Calgary, and he went to Growers Supply, or Growers Ferguson Supply and worked there.
And I worked my ass off and never got no real thanks for it. I stuck it out for years. It was a hell of a hard job, and it was a dirty job. Kept working myself, and then I finally got a job at SAIT, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, teaching mechanics. Out there tried to fire me because I was making notes for the students and teaching them. The students were coming out of there very knowledgeable, but I really ended up with some good students.
Arnold taught until going on medical leave in the early 2000s and stayed on medical leave until his retirement in 2013. After teaching, he was devoted to spending time with his family and helping to raise his young granddaughters. We took many trips, worked around his medical needs, and created amazing memories that he still talked about. We got to see both our sons get married to wonderful girls and have added a third granddaughter to the mix. We also been lucky to see our eldest granddaughter get married on her 52nd wedding anniversary to a young man who already felt like family. Arnold never thought that he'd have this long, so every moment and every milestone was a blessing.
Arnold, of course, is the figure, of course, standing out. He's much taller than the rest of us, and he was small, slender individual which was a great-looking individual in school, and he made sure that every one of us had the opportunity to, of course, go to school. And he was our leader. He was our ensure that we were never ever picked on in school, and even though a small community, Hayes, where we grew up at was a very small school. I think the maximum at the best was 400 students in all classes, and you even had to go to Vauxhall School to carry on with your high school, because there was no high school. Just 1 to 9 in Hayes. But while in Hayes, Arnold and Eddie, they played on the baseball team. They were excellent baseball players. Arnold also continued on to help coach the team I played on in Hayes. There was memories such as we had not enough vehicles to take all the ball team to Vauxhall for a tournament day. And so Arnold threw us all in the back of his half-ton, drove to Vauxhall, and we played the game and did very well in a Vauxhall tournament, knowing that, of course, nowadays that would never be allowed. And we did what we had to do in Hayes. Our family life in Hayes, growing up as children, was very enjoyable. We learned an awful lot from Mom and Dad, and even though it was a minimal amount of pleasures that we had, we were able to achieve and gain everything we could. Arnold met the love of his life, Joby, and when they got married, there was a little story about that too. Of course, they got married across in the U.S. They ran away and eloped and got married, and a little story behind that, and which we have talked about through quite a few of the years. Arnold and Joby were so great when they eventually did move to the city of Calgary. The kids were very, very young and not even in school then, and Arnold and Joby allowed me to live with them, which I was in Calgary already, living as a 17-year-old, sort of lost, sort of not knowing what to do, and of course they guided me all the way if possible, guided me to achieve my heavy-duty mechanics with Arnold and me going together, and all at the school at Tissot. And I would have never passed third year, I'm sure, if it wasn't for Arnold. His case study was top of the class, and of course mine was probably the bottom of the class. So he was very helpful in getting me through the schooling, which of course ended up being the rest of my career. Of heavy-duty mechanics and automotive mechanics and everything else since then. That's how much Arnold has guided me and helped me out throughout all the years. We could always rely on Arnold for some knowledgeable thoughts. Anything that came up, we could look to Arnold for guidance, and which we did and we have. As a big brother, we could have asked for nobody better. We all looked up to Arnold, and we all will miss him. We're missing him now. We're missing him forever. And closing, I just want to say I'm so happy to have had Arnold as a brother to grow up with and carry on into my life. And now, of course, I'm in the role of being a leader of my family, and I know I can use the same knowledge that Arnold has given me to, of course, help me out in my own life with leader of our family. I thank you ever so much, Arnold, and the best of to you and all the family, and you're forever in my mind, Arnold. Thank you.
Arnold and myself were 12 years apart. One of my first memories, I don't even know if I was going to school then, he picked me up in an old truck that he was hauling cattle to Lethbridge in. I remember seeing the Lethbridge lights at dark. It amazed me. On the way home, this old truck, I remember he had a bag in the front of it that held water. He had to pour water in the radiator because it was overheating. We got home and I traveled with him a lot of places. I remember him taking me on his dates. I remember when Joby and Arnold drove around Vauxhall. I was with them. I remember when Joby and Arnold got married. I was pretty upset at Joby taking my big brother away. As it turned out pretty good. I stayed with them weeks at a time in their homes, everyone they owned, growing up with their children. looking after them the little bit I could. But Joby and Arnold looked after me. They were both like a parent to me. We'll all shed a tear or two that he is gone, but we know he's in a better place. He's with Grandma and Grandpa now, and we'll all see him again. Till we do, goodbye. Thank you.
One of my best stories about my dad is the one where I was over at his house working in the garage, and we had the door open, as we usually did. And a car pulled up behind the garage and parked in front of the door, which kind of peeved off my dad. The driver got out, and immediately my dad started swearing. Holy effing hell, look what the effing cat dragged in. Hell the F are you? And the driver turned and said the same thing to Dad. He said, hell the F are you, Arnold? Oh my effing Gert, I can't believe how things are going out here, yeah. Effing this and effing that. I had never heard my dad swear in all the years. And he swore about every third letter I think that came out was a swear. And the guy was a former student of his that stopped by to say hi. And the two of them went on and chatted and swearing for the next half an hour. And he just wanted to stop by and invite Dad to see his shop. And because he was pretty proud of how he became somebody, I guess. And after he had left, my dad was just grinning ear to ear. He was really proud of that guy and what he accomplished for himself. And for the rest of the day, I couldn't believe my dad swore so much. I had to tell everybody I knew. That was a good memory. Another thing about Dad is the way he handled crying babies. When they were crying near him, he would, in a very loud, scary voice, cry more loudly than the baby. And the baby usually were so shocked that they stopped for a minute and then cried a little softer, and Dad would do it again, even louder. And the little baby would be so shocked and afraid of my dad, they'd stop crying. It's no wonder all of the young kids were so afraid of Grandpa. But the reality was he was just like a marshmallow that was too close to the fire. He was crusty on the outside and soft in the middle.
Memories of my dad. I have a couple that I would like to share. But first of all, I want to say my dad was amazing. I was just like my dad. Spinning image, lots in common. We always joked around that we both had 9 lives. He was around way longer than he was ever supposed to be. I believe I was 12 when I went to Disneyland, and he had a year to live then. So now I'm 51, and he told me last week I was been a pain in the ass the whole 51 years. But I know he loved me very much. And spending as much time with him as I could was always the best times I could have. But when I was younger, my dad worked for Ferguson, and he was on call at night sometimes to go and fix heavy-duty equipment on job sites. And when he would get a call in the middle of the night, even on a school night, he was allowed to wake me up so I could go. So I'd put on my little coveralls and I'd get to go in the service truck, and I would clean all the parts in a vat of Varsol. So I was my daddy's little helper. So that was so much fun. I loved to tinker with him in the garage and hang out and spend the time. I definitely was a daddy's girl. No doubt about it. Then as we were older, I guess I was in my early teens. My older brother was going to go skiing with a bunch of his buddies, so my dad said he would drive. So we left really early one Saturday morning and dropped them off at the ski hill, and then my dad and I went to Banff for the day. So we got to hang out and have lunch. We went horseback riding, which was so fun. My dad always loved horses. He told us all the stories about his horse Blackie growing up. And so yeah, we spent the day and had a blast. We always had a blast together. So, and then once skiing was done, we'd pick them up and drive back home. So yeah, my dad was always right in there ready to do something with us kids. Camping was a big thing too. We did lots of camping, and it's still something dear to my heart. But I'm gonna miss my dad. I miss him now. I miss him every day, and I will for the rest of my life. I will always miss him, but know he's at peace, and he's with me always, my guardian angel. He'll be with me by my side through everything. And I have him tattooed on my arm, and always in my heart. So yeah, he was an amazing man, my rock for sure. But he's always with us. Love you, Dad.
It's hard to know what to say when it's about someone who helped shape every part of yourself. You know, he wasn't just my grandpa, he helped raise me. He used to tell people he had 5 kids. Most of my memories involve my grandpa. When we were growing up, we practically lived at his house. You know, I was always front and center, riding shotgun while he was driving the motorhome on camping trips, or getting up in the middle of the night to help him when he was working on a car. I would sit in the front passenger seat, and there was one time that I fell asleep, and he must have taken the jack out of one side or something, because I woke up when the car jolted sideways. I remember going out to Girlies, and we were choosing which kittens we wanted, and he was very adamant that they were not coming home with a cat. Of course, he picked one up and was petting her. And then when we were ready to go, he just got up, walked to the car, and got in, almost still holding the cat. There was another time when I was going to school at St. and I had to do a project on biodiesel, and I told him I knew absolutely nothing about biodiesel. So the next day I came to his house and he had an entire binder full of all the information you could ever need about biodiesel, conversions, engines. It was weird, but it was perfect. He was the kind of person who always knew what you needed, whether you needed to talk, or a shoulder to cry on, or just a little bit of tough love to get through a difficult time. The world's a little dimmer now that he's gone.
We little knew that morning that God was going to call your name. In life we loved you dearly. In death we do the same. It broke our hearts to lose you. You did not go alone. For part of us went with you the day God called you home. You left us peaceful memories, and your love is still our guide. And though we cannot see you, you are always at our side. Our family chain is broken and nothing seems the same, but as God calls us one by one, the chain will link again.
No, it was just a part of life. I think we were a pretty complete family, weren't we, Mom? Grandma was my backbone. She'd work. She would help me at nights. Yeah. Funny how things turn around, eh? I love you very much so.